On the evening of November 22nd, 1963, millions of Americans sat in stunned silence as televisions across the nation delivered shocking news. The President of the United States had been assassinated. For many people, it felt unimaginable. How could the most protected and powerful leader in the country be killed in broad daylight? But what most Americans didn't realize was that this was not the first time. In fact, it wasn't even the second or the third. Long before John F. Kennedy's assassination shocked the world, 3 other American presidents had already met violent ends. Each murder happened under different circumstances, different decades, different political climates, different killers. Yet every assassination left behind a trail of unanswered questions, national grief, and permanent changes to American history. These were not simply attacks on individuals, they were attacks on the presidency itself. Each bullet changed the future of the United States in ways few people could have imagined. Tonight, we examine the stories of the 4 American presidents who never finished their terms, their final days, their killers, the investigations, and the lasting impact their deaths had on the nation. This is the dark and fascinating history of America's assassinated presidents.
Chapter 1. Abraham Lincoln.
To understand the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, we first need to understand the America he led. By the early 1860s, the United States was tearing itself apart. The issue of slavery had divided the country for decades. Northern states increasingly opposed the expansion of slavery, while many southern states considered it essential to their economy and way of life. When Abraham Lincoln won the presidential election in 1860, several southern states chose to leave the Union. Soon afterwards, civil war erupted. For 4 long years, Americans fought Americans. The conflict became the deadliest war in American history. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers died. Entire communities were devastated. Yet throughout the chaos, Lincoln remained determined to preserve the Union. His leadership transformed him into one of the most influential presidents in American history. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation. He pushed for the abolition of slavery. And despite enormous political pressure, he refused to allow the nation to break apart. By April 1865, victory was finally within reach. Confederate General Robert E. Lee had surrendered. The Civil War was effectively over. The streets of Washington, D.C. were filled with celebration. People sang songs, church bells rang, flags waved everywhere. After years of suffering, peace had finally arrived. No one embodied that hope more than Abraham Lincoln. Friends and colleagues later recalled that he seemed unusually relaxed and optimistic during those final days. He spoke frequently about rebuilding the country. He wanted reconciliation. He wanted healing. He wanted America to move forward. But while many Americans celebrated the Union victory, others were furious. Among them was a 36-year-old actor named John Wilkes Booth. Booth was famous, handsome, charismatic, and deeply devoted to the Confederate cause. He viewed Lincoln not as a hero but as a tyrant. For months, Booth had obsessed over ways to strike back against the president. At one point, he even planned to kidnap Lincoln. When that plan failed, his ambitions became far more deadly. April 14, 1865, Good Friday. Lincoln decided to attend a performance of the comedy play Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater in Washington. The president arrived with his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln. The atmosphere was cheerful. The war was over. The future seemed bright. Meanwhile, Booth learned of Lincoln's plans. As a well-known actor, he was familiar with Ford's Theater. He knew its hallways, its entrances, its exits. Most importantly, he knew exactly how to reach the presidential box. As the play continued, Booth waited patiently. Then came the moment he had been anticipating. At approximately 10:15 p.m., he quietly entered the presidential box. The audience laughed at a joke on stage. The laughter masked the sound of his movements. Booth raised a small pistol, pulled the trigger. A single shot echoed through the theater. Lincoln collapsed instantly. The audience was confused at first. Many thought the gunshot was part of the performance. Within seconds, panic spread throughout the building. Booth then leaped from the presidential box onto the stage below. As he landed, he injured his leg, but despite the injury, he managed to escape. The theater erupted into chaos. Doctors and attendants rushed to Lincoln's side. It quickly became clear that his wound was catastrophic. The president was carried across the street to a boarding house. Throughout the night, officials gathered around his bedside, cabinet members, military officers, friends, family, all hoping for a miracle. No miracle came. At 7:22 a.m. on April 15, 1865, Abraham Lincoln died, the first assassinated president in American history. America entered a period of profound mourning. Millions grieved. Newspapers across the country printed black borders around their front pages. Crowds lined railroad tracks as Lincoln's funeral train carried his body across the nation. For many Americans, it felt as though the country had lost not just a president, but a symbol of unity itself. Yet even as the nation mourned, Authorities launched one of the largest manhunts in American history, and the search for John Wilkes Booth had only just begun.